Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm really excited to be here today with my buddy Bruce. We're going to be talking about strategic relationships, something very near and dear to my heart. It's something that Bruce is very passionate about too. He's a multifamily investor, one of the members inside of Investor Fuel. And it was his idea to talk about strategic relationships. And I said, well, that's music to my ear. So excited to talk about that today. Professional real estate investors know that it's not really about the real estate. In fact, real estate is just a vehicle to freedom. A group of over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors from across the country meet several times a year at the Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind to share ideas on how to strengthen each other's businesses, but also to come together as friends and build more fulfilling lives for all of those around us. On today's show, we're going to continue our conversation of fueling our businesses and fueling our lives. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Bruce, how are you, my friend?
Hey, good. Thanks, Mike, for having me on. I'm super excited to be here. This is really a treat for me.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're here, and it's funny because I was at an event actually this morning with George, who's in Investor Fuel. He had an event here in Dallas, and I started talking to somebody about partnerships and the power of your network and stuff like that. So this is like perfect timing, and it's the type of stuff that I talk about honestly every day. So I'm glad it's something you're passionate about too.
Yeah, George is a great guy.
Yeah. So, hey, I know, like me, you used to be a single family investor, transitioned into multifamily. You've got a rich background, but why don't you share a little bit more about your background, how you got started in real estate investing, and then maybe a little bit about how you made the transition from single family to multifamily?
Oh, yeah, that's it. It was actually this year, or this month is our 20th anniversary at Bakerson. So that's kind of exciting. 20 years in business, kind of a long haul, been through a pretty tragic downturn for the country. And I got some scars to prove it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got started in single family. Actually, before Bakerson, I worked with a company. I was out of work. I had a company that I closed down, broke even on here in Arizona. And I thought, I got to get into something else, and met my friend Gary, and he taught me how to do tax lien foreclosures. And he was buying properties that way. And I said, man, Gary, you're leaving some money on the table on these deals. How can we buy them? And one of my friends said, hey, Bruce, you're in real estate. You got to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's a great book. And it's really right up your alley. So I read that. And I told Gary, hey, look, we could use other people's money on this. He said, no, you could do that all you want. He said, I like my tax lien foreclosure business, and that's what I do. So then I started buying houses, picked up 3 houses, a duplex and a triplex in Phoenix, all with other people's money, and turned them into rentals. And it was a good deal, but it was like, okay, this is kind of exciting. So let's get into fix and sell. Well, at that point, my friend Jack approached me and said, he wanted to do the construction side if I found the deals. And I said, great. Well, his dad and my dad worked together in a bakery for my grandfather, Wuollet Bakery in Minnesota, which is still around some 80 years later. And so then that's where Bakerson came from. We're both sons of bakers. We're SOBs, right? That's what I tell people. I'm a son of a baker. But so then we started in business, and he did the repairs, and I was finding the deals. Well, I found more deals than I could possibly fix and sell, and the list was just growing. And I was like, I got to do something here. And I met Jim Staples out of Arlington, Texas. I flew up to Seattle for a boot camp, in the streets boot camp with Jack's brother. We did a boot camp on how to wholesale. And while I was there, I flipped a house in Phoenix, and I'm like, whoa, hold on here. I said, Jimmy, here's a guy from Arlington meeting me in Seattle, teach me how to flip a house in Phoenix. And I flipped one during this boot camp. Okay, this works. This is amazing. Well, that guy that bought that house ended up buying 47 houses from us the next year. And what was exciting about that was I was able to just have him go look at the property. Say, Joe, go look at the property. What will you pay for it? He'd give me a number. I'd subtract 5 or 7 grand, go to the seller, work out a deal, and we do a flip that way. And it was like super easy. And we did 60 something houses that year, 47 to one buyer. So that was how we entered into wholesaling and entering into flipping houses in Phoenix. Ended up doing over 2,200 transactions in the Phoenix market. And in the middle of that, we did a bunch in the beginning, 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then a bunch in 10, 11, 12, 13. And we know what happened in 7, 8, and 9. well, what happened was I had a bunch of rentals, and a bunch at that time was 17 rentals. And our partner on that said, I don't really enjoy doing this. They said, well, let's sell them. So we sold them. The last one sold in December or in October of 2007. In 2008, the wheels came off at the end of that. About a year later, the wheels completely came off the market. What was it, September 2008, I think, or was it 2007? But anyway, the market started crashing around us. But during that time, we took our money from the houses, and we were going to be these big land barons. And we secured our developer for golf course secured a square mile of land in the West Valley of Phoenix, and we were going to develop into this private golf course with Greg Norman. It was like this was Greg Norman designed a course on it, and we were like, "Whoa, yeah, we're going to be something big." Well, then the market happened, and we had done everything on seller carrybacks. So we called one owner after the other and said, "You want your property back? You want your property back? Let's do a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Here's your property. We're done with it." And I had to close that, and it cost me a ton of money. And basically, started all over. And that's when we got back into wholesaling houses, 2012, 13, 14. And so that was the first mistake, was thinking we could do something we couldn't do. And we were doing it completely alone. We did not form a team of people that have done it before. Second mistake was when technology came in. I did not latch on to technology at first. I like the yellow notes. I was doing yellow notes before that became a thing, putting them on doors, knocking on doors in the streets. Internet came, completely changed how people buy houses. And I didn't transition very well with that. So then we thought, we got to flip something else. Hey, people aren't flipping apartment buildings. So we started wholesaling apartment buildings. So we wholesaled 25, smallest fee probably being 10,000, largest was a couple 100,000. We thought, oh, wow, this is pretty neat. Then we seen what they were doing with that.
And these multifamily, these were what size typically? Probably all over if you did that many of them.
6 of them, probably 6 units was the smallest. The largest was a 250 space mobile home park in far east valley of Phoenix.
Okay.
So in everything in between, apartment buildings, 150 units, things like that. So, but what we've seen when these guys that we ran into while we were doing that said, why don't we take one down together? So they said, by the way, we have this deal we have to close on in 21 days, and we don't have the money lined up. We need some help. So we said, hey, we got a network. So we partnered with them and saved them on a deal. And so we did 2 deals. That was when we first did our buy, fix, and sell multifamily in Phoenix. Was a 64 unit and 120 unit. And since then we've, kind of shrunk our business in some ways. I had a peak with 17 employees. Now we have 7. And I've also went different ways. My business partner, we're still good friends, no issues there, but he went into mobile home parks. I stayed in the multifamily. And then the last year we transitioned from buy, fix, and sell to legacy buy, fix, and never sell. We want to buy cash flow. And that's where I got introduced. Corey brought this idea to me a number of years ago. And I said, Corey, you're crazy. I'm going to stick with the single family houses. I know what I'm doing. Then a couple of years ago, I was looking at what he's doing. I said, hey, I want to be part of that. And so he invited me to the boardroom. And then, of course, that's where I met you. And so we started doing cash flow a year ago, but that was with Corey poking me and saying, you guys got to buy cash flow,
It's funny. I think that's the evolution of a real estate investor is you're making today money. And then you get to a point to where if you could look back now, you're the same way. I'm the same way. If I would have just kept everything that I ever flipped, like, oh my God, it would be a totally different game right now. You can't
even 1 in 10.
Yeah. You can't keep everything. Right. But if you had kept a lot more or found a way to keep more, right. I mean, in hindsight, we know what's happened with appreciation. And I think you get to a point to where you make today money and then you make kind of continuity or ongoing revenue, cash flow. Right. And so I think when we get later in our careers, some of it is like, hey, we realize we don't want to work this hard forever. Some of it is like you see what other people have done and you wish you'd done it earlier about generating cash flow, right? Just revenue that you do these deals, and when you're wholesaling everything, it's a hamster wheel. You can never get out. But if you can find a way to monetize those on an ongoing basis, then you do something one time, and it's not like you never have to work again. But that one deal could feed you for a lifetime, right?
Yeah. Well, it's transaction versus annuity, right? The transaction you get in and out and get paid in annuity is consistently paying you. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, it sounds like when you tried to transition into multifamily and you had some partnerships. I want to dive into the partnership part. So, and I think you and I were, different stories, but same realization at one point of like, I don't need partners. I don't want to share my secret sauce or whatever I thought I had with anybody. And I'm just going to have my head down and kind of work hard, to realizing like, wow, if I open up and work with people, then there's things that I'm not good at and things they're not good at. You can find ways to complement each other. Talk a little bit about your story of kind of that realization that, you can't do it all yourself, and there's some benefits to working with other people.
Well, you and I kind of briefly talked about that, where that you think you have the secret sauce. And also, I think when you hit a certain part of success in real estate, you think that I'm the man. I got the information. I have information nobody else has. And what's changed is when you look at the internet, there's nothing, everything that we're doing, somebody is doing somewhere.
Yeah.
When I was doing I was doing double escrow with 2 title companies, and between me and the title company and their legal team, we put together this plan, and nobody else was doing it. Since then, I found out there was guys doing it in Indiana. There was people doing it in Detroit, people doing it on the East Coast. It was being done in multiple places. And so when I find these ideas that I thought were secret sauce, my brother informed me, he says, you know what? When I got to a point, he says, yeah, that's pretty natural at this point in your career to hit that. And I said, why do you say that? He says, well, because humans by nature, when they hit a certain challenge, come up with similar solutions. Like the wheel was invented. They say wheel was seen in wheel and lever were in China, but also in South America around the same time. And there was no Google then. So how was this happening? Because they were evolutionary, as evolution goes, even in business, you're faced with similar challenges, you have similar results. And then when I realized that I don't have all the answers, and I found people out there that would share everything. Like, oh, Bruce, here's my plan. Here's what I do. Here, come visit my office. And they show on a whiteboard, beginning to end, what they did. And I said, you're sharing this with everybody? I mean, oh yeah. It's like, nobody's going to do anything with it. People are too lazy. He said, I could share my whole story with somebody that says a budding entrepreneur. And 2 years later, I call and he still hasn't done his first deal. Don't worry. Nobody's going to steal your information because it's already out there. And I was like, I don't know. Well, then once I had that realization, then I realized everybody has their own secret sauce, which isn't secret information, but it's secret talents, things that they're passionate about that they can bring to the table, like an attorney. I don't want to be an attorney, but boy, I like passionate attorneys that really know the law. Yeah. Right. But he could teach me his whole how to run a law firm. I'm still not going to do my own legal work. I'm going to hire him. Yeah. So that's kind of the mentality, that the shift that happened in my brain.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people aren't going to do anything with it. The real secret sauce is work hard, right? At the end of the day, be willing to do the work. A lot of people just give up at the first sign of adversity. So awesome. So let's talk about, ways to partner that, maybe make more sense than multifamily versus single family. Kind of compare and contrast, like ways to partner, which there's plenty of ways to partner on single family versus multifamily, and your experiences with that.
Yeah. So what we did is on our first partnership, Jack and I were 50-50 partners in our company. And we ended up doing the deals where I'd find the deals and he would do the work. And then when we got into wholesaling, I would find the deals and he would find the money if we needed to take it down, or he would find the buyers if we needed to flip it. So I worked on the acquisition side, he worked on the disposition side, and it worked really well. And then when we decided to start taking buildings down, we brought in a third guy that came in and he owned the properties with us. And that was a separate LLC. So he brought the money and the credit. Jack brought the construction side to fix it up and make it nice. And then I found the property. So the three of us were able to split the properties, just a third each down the line. And it worked well for that. And we did that on a series of houses. But we also found that we had some partnerships that only lasted transactional. We did a partnership on a house to buy, fix, and sell with a group out of I think it was Ohio, but they had a presence in Phoenix back in 2006 10, 11, and 12. And they would find the houses and then we would fix them up and sell them, and we'd do a profit split that way. And it was very much a strategic transactional partnership. Once that market disappeared, they were no longer here. They took up their tool or their systems, went to another market, but they did well here for a few years. And so we were their boots on the ground for about a half a dozen flips. Yeah. So there's that. And then in multifamily, you can do the same thing. You can do it where you partner with them on a per deal basis, which I recommend from a standpoint, especially in the beginning, because you find out people's warts when you start working with them. And then you have to decide, are those warts we like or willing to tolerate, or are those ones we can't tolerate? Because everybody has, issues when you form a relationship like a marriage, and you have to decide, is this the person I want to be married to, or is this person I just want a relationship with? And you have to decide that. Or maybe not at all. Maybe it's a one and done. But if you do it on one property, but what happens is we're emotionally high in the beginning. We're willing to give up anything to get this next stage. And then we get into it, realize we're doing 80% of the work and we're only getting 20% of the pay. Or on the flip side, they see that they're doing 80% of the work and we're getting 80%. It could be either way, right? It depends on how the system is. And there's a misalignment of values, and I'm talking monetary value of ownership.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge. Where if you do it on one deal, then next, okay, I'm not going to do it that way. And so
it's a great, and I've seen lots of partnerships break up, and it's always because of what you said. It's really a couple things, some sort of miscommunication that festers, or somebody feeling like they're doing more of the work than the other person and getting paid disproportionately less, right? And so I think you're right that the best way to kind of ease into it is just to date for a while, which is like, let's partner on a deal, but we don't have to partner on the whole business. Like you can be deal partners, right?
Yeah. And I'm a big proponent of that. And we're doing that now. Like the partners that we have on the Fort Worth deal, we're looking at another one, and we'll discuss it with them, see if we continue with this one, or if we go another direction. We're still in the negotiation stage at this point, but there's nothing wrong with that. We're friendly, so it's good. So we may or may not, we'll see how the future goes, whether or not they're on every deal or just some deals. And that I like that from a standpoint of scalability. But if you become too intertwined, then there's certain things, like if I find a deal and they say, we don't like that deal, well, it kills the deal then. They're not going to, or if you like this deal in Tulsa and these people only invest in Dallas, well, then you got to find a different partner in Tulsa. And so just like, and I realize when we're partnering with them, they have other partners and they're doing other deals outside of ours as well. As long as people realize that they might buy a deal right down the road from where we own the deal and we're not partners. And you just have to be okay with that. If you're not okay with that, then you got to change your business, because it's going to happen with these deal partners.
And multifamily is perfect for that, right? Just going deal to deal. Like you don't have to, not that you might not have a small partnership, but especially partnerships get way more complicated if there's more than two people involved, right? But that's what syndications are kind of built for, is people have different roles inside of there. And they're very much deal specific, because a lot of multifamily stuff, people are doing it in multiple markets, and there's always going to be somebody that's like, I don't want to go into that state, or I don't want to go into that state, or I don't want to travel, or whatever it might be, right? That's what multifamily is perfect for partnering on, right?
Yeah, I think so. And the partners go beyond the actual partners, because you also have you got to have good brokers, you have to have a good team around you, good attorneys, good title companies, contractors, vendors, property management companies. I mean, all those are vital, whether they're your partner or if you hired out as a contractor. It's really important to have those relationships, those resources, strategic. And you may not use the same partner in different cities. You might use one in one city and somebody else in another city. We have three assets, we're in 3 different markets, and we have 3 different property management companies. And it's just, we found the ones that we feel are the best for that property at that time when we bought it, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the power and the importance of surrounding yourself with people, whether it's kind of coaching and mentoring at some point in your career, masterminds like Investor Fuel, where you can really kind of be around a lot of people that are growing and sharing resources and lessons learned, and good and bad, right? Together, like just how I think, you were like me in a lot of ways too, where early on you just didn't think you needed anybody. I'm going to go figure it out on my own. And then probably had some lessons along the way of like the power of that, right?
Well, yeah, if we talk about the mastermind first and the mentorship second, the mastermind, what I was really been intrigued with since I've joined Investor Fuel, that's just been hugely powerful, is not the successes. You can read about those on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, and those don't excite me. I mean, they do in a sense. You want to see what people are doing, but what I liked about our meeting we had in Nashville, when we sat down with the investors, is they shared the challenges and the scars, and they asked, hey, this is where I'm struggling. Where can I get help? I'm like, so then, for our business, our strength is finding good deals. Our kryptonite, our weakness, if you will, has been finding capital. And so when I brought that up, people are like, oh, well, I have access to, we just can't find deals. And so these relationships can be born that way in the meeting. But the other thing is, people shared in really personal stories on where they had mistakes, where they didn't see things happening, where a property manager was stealing money, and they shared openly what happened, how the property manager was stealing money and pilfering it, and how they didn't see it at first. And they're really open and vulnerable. And I think if you're going to have a mastermind group, if people are not vulnerable and real and authentic, then it's not a mastermind group. Then it's just a group of people thumping their chest. And I didn't get that at all. I mean, there's not one person I found in the group that's a chest thumper. Said, look what I did, talk to me. Everybody, no matter how successful, was willing to say, this is where I need help and this is where I'm stuck. And sometimes I could offer help and sometimes I can't, but that's okay. When we're sitting in those round tables, unbelievable the amount people would share. I'm like, I get the warm fuzzies just thinking about it right now. I can't wait till the next one. So that's one thing about your group that I've never seen before, is just the vulnerability is the term I've used a couple of times here. And that's really what it is. Really open, authentic group of people. I'm super excited to be part of it.
Glad you're part of it. And I know you were initially apprehensive to join, right? Like, this maybe not be for me. So maybe kind of share your thought there.
Yeah, well, we had met at Corey's boardroom, and I said, you said, you got to join. And well, Corey said, Bruce, you got to join. Go talk to Mike. And I'm like, okay, I seen Mike. He seemed, I wasn't sure. So I went and talked to you, and you said, yeah, you asked. And I said, well, Mike, my concern is that all I'm going to do is go there and take that. I have to be able to add value. If I don't add value and all I'm doing is taking, I feel empty and hollow. And he said, no, Bruce, you're so open. You'll be fine. I'm like, I don't know. Well, since then, I've had half a dozen people at least in one meeting that I'm in regular contact with. I talked to two of them yesterday and one on Monday from this group. I mean, they're becoming quite close, and this has only been about 3 months. So I'm like, this is really neat. And then there was 3 people I met from the boardroom that are part of Investor Fuel that are now reaching out. They're single family, and they say, hey, teach me about multifamily. Oh, I'd glad to. I'll get on a call anytime and tell you what I've done right, what I've done wrong, what I've learned from others. And they're like, man, you're so willing to share. And I'm like, well, this is great. So I am able to supply what I was really reluctant. I thought, what value can I bring, Mike? And I'm feeling it now. So that's pretty exciting. So thank you for
glad you're a part of it. And I always know when people have some concern that I can't give enough, that's a good member for us, because I think a lot of people in this industry do have the, not that people sit around and think about it, but they tend to be more takers than givers, and our culture is very much based on giving. And I think you've probably seen in a short period of time, and you'll continue to see it as you go on. The more you give, the more you get back, right? And there's just this reciprocity feeling of people that have been given so much, or know that they have access to have any questions answered, is that they want to answer questions as well. They want to help out. They want to find ways to help other people, and that's the foundation of our culture at Investor Fuel.
Yeah, what was really incredible for me too is that the other meeting, the $1 million meeting we followed up with, that I showed up to, and there's only a few multifamily people there, but it was about mindset and about overcoming personal challenges and how do you have breakthroughs. And the people that spoke there were just, to this day, I going back over my notes and just really studying what did they bring to the table. So yeah, this really been great as well.
Yeah.
Bruce, the mentor, just real quick, just on the mentorship, I wanted to share that one of the things that I was real reluctant was to seek out those that have been before, because you think, why would anybody want to be part of, why would they want to help? Well, just through a customer of my brother, he's in construction, and he was remodeling Class A apartment buildings in Phoenix, and they're huge buildings, and they're, tens of millions of dollars. He said, you got to meet this guy. So I met him, and I said, I want somebody that can kind of teach me what to do right, what to do wrong. So I can be a resource to you. We get on regular Zoom calls, whether he's here, San Diego, or in his cabin up in Northern Arizona, but they own their funds. They have half a dozen funds. The largest is $1 billion and the smallest is 300 million in the REITs. And he's willing to talk to me about stuff. And I'm like, wow. So I've asked him about these cycles, and he's explained, he's been 50 something years in business. So he's been through a number of cycles. I've been through one. But he's sharing the signs and the experience and the bruises and the bumps and the challenges, how his first business failed, and he and his brother were just dead broke, and they were getting out of construction and getting into other things, and now he's principal in a very large organization that owns property it's all west of the Rockies, but they own a lot of real estate, and just they're willing to share, those that are willing to listen, and then share some value in return. So what I do is I refer him to good restaurants, I guess, as return, because he keeps commenting that everyone you've sent me to has been perfect. What do you recommend next? And if that's all it takes, by golly, I'll send them a list of them, right?
Yeah,
But
for sure.
but the biggest thing, Mike, is that you would talk to those that have been there before, those that have blazed the paths of multiple cycles, because the last 5 years in this business in the United States is not going to be the norm for the next 5. And just realize that.
Right.
And who's going to know that? People that have been through other cycles. And so just listen to them and be aware that you're not the times, and we already know that after the last 6 months are different than the previous 6 months. I mean, it's been insane what's happened in some respects, but it's a repeat of other cycles. So just be conscientious of how to protect yourself in the down cycles, and the mentors know that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, one of my biggest eye openings as a real estate investor, and it took several years to get it, is to surround yourself or find people. And I've got a couple of mentors like the one you mentioned there that just have been around for a long time, and they have wisdom, and they just this realization that, like the stock market, depending on where you're at in the cycle, you pull out different tools, right? And so in the stock market, if the market gets overheated, people might pull back and go into bonds or something that's less risky. But real estate's the same way. There's different exit strategies or different ways to play the business based on where you are in that market cycle. And you only know that after you've been in the business for a while. When you're new, if you're primarily a wholesaler and all you do is wholesale, you don't understand other components of the business. That you really have to be around for a long time to realize that you just have different strategies in different markets.
Oh, exactly. And then, like, even for now, what we're looking at specifically is ways that we can buy where there's either assumable mortgages, permanent financing in place, a Fannie, Freddie, or a bank loan that's assumable, which there are a number of them,
Yep.
or seller financing. Those are really the 2 areas we're hyper focusing on right now to make our offers, because we don't know what the lending is going to be over the next 2 to 3 months. If we go into escrow today, then they may come back and say, you know what, for this deal, it's no longer 65% or 70 or 65% loan to value. We're only going to do 60%. And we know people that have had that happen right here in this town in Phoenix in the last month, where they had to bring an extra 7 digits to close a deal just because the lender said, we'll keep the same rate, but we're dropping 5% on what we're going to fund because of the uncertainty in the market. Well, that's a scary place to be if you're a syndicator raising capital.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's great for people to hear, because I think on the single family side, people understand subject tos and creative finance deals are really going to be an important part of the mix of this business, single family side going forward, but even on the multifamily side. In fact, a lot of multifamily loans by definition are assumable, or they have the ability to assume those. They might have prepayment penalties and stuff, so they also allow people to assume those. So no matter what kind of real estate you're in, getting creative and finding ways to lock in some cheaper rates is going to be key, certainly for the next couple of years, right?
Yeah, probably for the next year and a half. The forward curve is saying that the 2024 we'll see a pullback in the rates, but who knows? Who knows? We don't have a crystal ball. But one of the things that I really have latched onto this last year was there was a book by Harris. Harris? I'm drawing a blank on his name, but it's Catching Knives. I think it's Jack Harris. But anyway, Catching Knives book is phenomenal. It tells you, like, if you're looking at a deal right today and you think, I don't want to buy that deal today because the market's going to fall. Well, when the market falls down, that property is not going to be available on the next, when it's starting to swing back up. You look, the person that bought it has cash flowed all through those 2 to 3 years of that downturn. Now they're back to where they were when they bought it, but they had that cash flow for those years, and now they're making money into the future. So you buy when the property is available and the numbers work, and you can cash flow and cover the debt service. As long as you can do that and run the basic business, it doesn't matter when you buy, really.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. So, Bruce, if folks want to connect with you in any way, learn what you're doing, connect, where can they go to connect?
Well, the best way to do that is go to bakerson.com. That's BAKERSON.com. And right on there, you can get on my calendar and send me an invite. It's an open invite to get on my Calendly, and I'll schedule a 20-minute call with anybody that asks.
That sounds great. Don't, hopefully you don't get inundated here. So I think a lot of folks can get some good value from you. So, hey man, thanks for sharing your story today. Really appreciate it. So glad you're a part of the group, and thanks for all the kind words.
Oh, thanks, Mike. No, I'm super excited. A couple of weeks we'll be at the next event, and so it's going to be awesome.
Right. Yeah, well, glad you're a part of it. And everybody, I appreciate you learning some lessons today. If you're interested in transitioning into multifamily, and you've been a successful single family investor, or you're already actively own a lot of doors in the multifamily space, our cash flow group, which is our multifamily group inside of Investor Fuel, might be a fit for you. That's where Bruce is a member. It's a great group and lots of folks. I've been a GP and a lot of deal flow is happening inside of there. You just go to investorfuel.com and learn more, and we'll tell you a little bit more about our cash flow group. And if you're a single family investor, we'd love for you to learn more about Investor Fuel. As well, as Bruce just said, our next event's coming up here really in 2 weeks. So by the time we publish this, might be past, but the events are right around the corner. We always have a lot of amazing activities going on. So again, I invite you to go to investorfuel.com to learn more about all of our groups, and we appreciate you a bunch. We'll see you on the next show. Are you an active real estate investor? If so, and you want to latch on to the power of surrounding yourself with over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors, all committed to building stronger businesses and living richer, fuller lives, you should jump on a call with us to learn more about Investor Fuel. Simply visit investorfuel.com to get started.